Hello, so welcome Erica, welcome Louis. My name is Margo van Greta, and I'm delighted to be here with this Be Your Own Therapist class. So I very much would like to start with a moment of silence, just to bring ourselves present. So I just want to invite you to notice how you sit here. Your body on the seat, sit bones on the seat, legs supporting you. Notice your breathing. Allowing yourself to let go of anything you don't need, any previous activities, or simply waking up, whatever has been going on before. And in your own way, check your motivation for being here. And then let's include an altruistic motivation. We may have a motivation of maybe becoming more kind, an even more wiser person, even more kinder than we are already. Having more peace and happiness in our own lives. Also, let's include the motivation that this may benefit others. Our immediate surroundings, our friends, families, neighbors, colleagues, and eventually all beings. Thank you. So, yeah, I'll just introduce myself a little, since this is the first time I do this course. So my name is Margo. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I live here in Scotland for 31 years now in an eco-village Vindhorn, a small community or smallish community in the northeast of Scotland. I've been involved with Buddhism for about 35 years, so since the late 70s. So it sounds like a while when I think of it, but it stays like an ongoing practice. I still, on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, I engage with Buddhist practice in different ways in my morning and evening practice, but even, when things come up, because that's very much a theme, things coming up, a theme we're going to use in these Be Your Own Therapist sessions. So the title, I think, I Be Your Own Therapist, I know it from this little booklet from Lama Zopa that says Becoming Your Own Therapist. So I may use that a little bit as a reference. So Lama Zopa was one of the founders of this lineage that the Buddhist Center is part of. Here in Scotland, I started a Buddhist group about 10, 12 years ago. So we also have a little group in the same lineage. So about these sessions, I want to make them very experiential. So I do a little bit of talking. I'm very open to questions or comments. Because that makes it also more alive. And at some point, I actually would like to do a little bit of inner work and to actually reflect on the material rather than just listening to anything interesting I may have to say. So it's very much, the idea is very much to use the material for your own reflections and for your own situation, because that's, that's where you are. So a little bit of background on this topic and on, oh, hello, now I can see you. Nice, hi. So the topic, it comes from the Buddhist tradition, and in Buddhism, we have the whole theme of Buddhism is that everything comes from the mind, that our mind or our consciousness is the source of our happiness and also the source of our pain. So we have the tendency to look outside ourselves for our sources of happiness, a good meal or a pleasant conversation or, success in whatever we do, or, usually we continue to look outside ourselves, thinking that, the next meal or the next friend or the next pleasant conversation or whatever it is we're wanting, the next thing that will make us happy. Now, we all have our experiences in life, and actually, so check this out. But in my experience, and also in the Buddha's experience, it's not the case that the outer circumstances really give us long-lasting satisfaction and happiness. The whole point of Buddhism and of inner work is to actually see that that's not the case. So now I say this, and the Buddha has said it, and many Buddhist teachers say it, but I just want to invite you to check that out for yourself, if that's the case. And that's actually something we're going to do in this session and in the next upcoming sessions. So Buddha said that, you can't find long-lasting satisfaction and happiness in yourself. Even the Rolling Stones, they say it. There's this, well, in my age, when I was a young lady, that was a popular song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. And actually Lama Zopa, he heard about that too. And he said, actually, so Lama Zopa is one of the other key teachers in our lineage. He said, well, they got it right. They described the problem, because no matter what we do in our lives, there's always this yearning of, well, something else, a next experience, a next experience that will make us happy. The thing is with the Rolling Stones, and I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Lama Zopa said, they only describe the problem. They don't describe the solution. So, and that is actually where Buddhism comes in, because Buddhism brings us different methods to actually find a solution for that. So but it's very important to start with knowing the problem, to know that there is a sense of ongoing dissatisfaction. And that might take a bit of time to actually reflect on it, because, some of us, can say, well, I'm fine in my life. But actually it requires a sense of introspection and reflecting on our lives and how we deal with different situations in my life. So check them out in your own life. So I have a memory of a situation in my life where I got something I wanted for a long time. So I had lived in a caravan for many years. And at some point, and I really wanted to live in a house. And here I live in this eco-village, Vindhorn, and they were starting to build eco-houses, nice, beautiful houses. And I thought, well, that would be nice, because a caravan, is not great on the long run. So I developed a strong wish to live in a house, in an eco-house, beautiful, just like many others. And at some point, after a few years of having that wish, I ended up in an eco house. There were 10, 12 people applying, but I was chosen the one who could live there. So suddenly, from a caravan, I lived in a beautiful, clean, warm, new, tidy eco house. Great insulation, very light, spacious compared to a caravan, and that is more spacious. So you would think, well, that's it. What I wanted for so many years, I should be deliriously happy. And yes, I was. And what happened next is very interesting. So a friend helped me move. And she said, well, now you have a nice house. Now you need some nice clothes. And she gave me a magazine. She threw a magazine on my little table. She said, here, nice clothes. So what happened was that evening, instead of being totally blissed out in my new house, I started to look in the magazine with really nice clothes. And I started to have the wish, if I only have that dress, then I'll be really happy. So, from a logical point of view, of course, it's ridiculous, but that's what happened. So now you may not be interested in dresses but check for yourself. How is that in your life? Has that ever happened to you that, you wanted something and you get it and then you want the next thing? So that is something I find very interesting to actually reflect on and explore. How does our mind work? Because, we all want happiness in our lives, but how does that actually work? How do we actually do it? Is it the next house or the next dress or the next car or the next friend or the next pleasant situation that arises? What is it? And if we have achieved that, are we aware that there is a tendency then we want something else? So, because then in a way, we're never satisfied. Sometimes they say, following attachment, it's like drinking salt water. Apparently, I've never drank salt water, but apparently, when you drink salt water, you drink, but it's also salty, so you want to drink more. And like following the path of attachment is like that. It's like drinking salt water. So it's a very interesting situation to actually notice that situation. The Buddha described our world, so our world on planet Earth, basically. He described it as we're in the desire realm. So we are in this level where we always want something. So, and in my experience, initially, maybe when I heard it, I go like, well, not me, I'm not such a materialistic person, not me. But actually reflecting on it, go like, yeah, it's true. It is a tendency that I notice. So you may want to check that out for yourself, like now when you sit here or over the coming days, like, notice yourself. How does that work for you? That's very interesting to, in a way, describe or identify what the problem is. Because if we know what the problem is, then we can also find a solution and a way to deal with things. So check it out for yourself. So another situation that often happens is about expecting our lives to be in a certain way, and also the expectancy that the way things are at the moment, if we are in case we are in a quite a stable or pleasant situation, at least in some parts of our lives, to expect them to continue. And not to expect that, not to expect that they will change. And that is actually also an incorrect assumption. I mean, I had that actually today. So earlier today, I was having lunch, because here it's now late afternoon. So I was having lunch and I'm reading the newspaper I'm reading the news online. And I was reading about all these people in Pakistan. There are all these floods at the moment. So I was reading about people losing their home, their livelihood, people floating in this dirty water, and really awful, really devastating, awful, horrendous situation. And here I am, sitting, just having lunch in my nice warm house. And, I was even thinking, comparing myself, like, wow, imagine that floating around with your family and all your possessions in vast amount of water, just, horrendous. And then I sit here nicely eating my soup and, feeling very safe. And although I live 20 meters away from a bay, and there was a flood alarm, and I'm living 1 mile away from the sea. And suddenly, 5 minutes later, there was a power cut here. Now, in Scotland, that's not very common. It's not like India or Nepal or Pakistan, where that happens more often. So I'm suddenly, from being very comfortable, I'm suddenly in this more place of distress or shock, like, no, I can't have a power cut. Like, I need to have a session in 2 hours. I need to be here. My computer needs to work. My Zoom needs to work. It all needs to work. And who knows, So that was also very interesting to, just to see that my expectation of, I'm fine. My electricity works. My house is safe. There is no flood here. Zoom will work. Wi-Fi will work. And it didn't last so long. It was finished in 20 minutes, half an hour or so. But still, there was this moment of concern. I didn't panic, but still I was quite concerned. And then thinking, I need to do this call. What will they think of me if I don't show up? So I, contacted Louis and say, hey, this or that's happening. And I sent him a YouTube link of another teacher saying, well, in case I can't show up, because they said it would take hours, here, please show this other link to the people. So, but the basic thing is, so I tried to remedy the situation, but there was this, it shook my complacency of thinking, well, these awful things, my pleasant, comfortable situation is not going to change. And I think that happens a lot in our lives, that when changes happen, when, suddenly something arises that is, unexpected, we may have a very different, a different experience. And often there can be a state of shock. Now, in this situation, I wasn't so shocked. I was just a bit nervous. But there has been other situations in my life where, suddenly things changed. And there was much more of a shock and of blaming other people, because that's often what we do. There is something happens in our lives, and instead of looking within, there might be the tendency to blame others, to blame the people who are doing it, our relationships, our life circumstances. So I remember about 2 years ago, there was in part of the pandemic, there was a situation where I lost my job. I've been working for an organization for 30 years, and in the pandemic, things changed, job changed, and my job suddenly was not there anymore. And there you go, I was being made redundant. So this was it was an outer circumstance, but it took me a long time to actually deal with it. It took me a lot of practice, because there was a strong tendency to be shocked, I was even thinking, well, even when other people were being made redundant, it's not going to happen to me. I thought, well, I think they're going to keep me, but at some point they didn't. Also, there was a strong, so that was incorrect. Also, there was a strong tendency to blame, the people, the managers or the trustees of that organization. So it was a whole event, actually. There was shock, there was anger, there was blaming, there was resentment. So it took actually a long time to actually be with that and work with that. And I used several of the with the Buddhist techniques, there's a lot of techniques and practices and meditations that we can use in order to deal with things like that. So I used as many of them as I could, and so that has helped me to actually deal with the situation, so that there is now at least a little bit more inner peace. I can't say it's all gone, but to actually deal with the anger, frustration, resentment that was there. So yeah, any thoughts at the moment? Otherwise, I would love to do a little bit of inner work, but any thoughts, questions, comments, observations? So I'd love to hear from you, like where you're at. Does this resonate at all? Yeah, great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I do also have a tendency to look outside, for fulfillment. And I think that's something that I resonate with. I can see that in my life too. Sorry about about the song about the baby song in the background.
Oh, I can't hear it, but I don't mind. Baby song is okay by me, but I can't hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that in my life too. Expecting, when I get this, when I get there, that or do that would be different. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any specific areas or what type of things you're thinking of?
I don't know. I think my life is disorganized right now in several areas, and I think, well, when I get this organized and that organized, everything will be better.
Yes.
So that's what I have in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of areas, when I get this organized and that organized, and and start working with what I want, and everything will be perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this tendency to dream about some sort of utopia when you get there, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
Like everything will be perfect. So
yes, exactly.
It's what I have in my mind sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great description. I totally resonate with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before I retired, and I had a good job and a lot of money, I used to buy things like books and computers, new models of computers. And it's not like I had any reasonable expectation of ever reading all the books I bought. But it was the anticipation. All of a sudden, a new book comes out and you see it. And, oh, if only I could read that book, and you buy it. And then before you even start reading it, you buy another book. Then you have bookshelves full of books. And you tell yourself, okay, when I retire, I'm going to read all of them. Yes. But then when you retire, you don't. You read some of them and you realize you can't read all of them. Right. And the same thing, especially with computers. I'd get a computer like a laptop and have a sticky key. I said, time for a new laptop. You never know what's going to go next. And then instead of buying a laptop that's just going to do what I want it to do, you look online and then for $2,000, you can get a laptop that has this kind of resolution and this huge amount of memory, and it's this fast. You're never going to be able to use any of all that stuff. Yeah. But there's just that desire to buy it. Yes. And then when you get it, you don't use all of it, all you do is write emails on it or watch YouTube. So it's like, and I thought once I got retired and I didn't have the money, I'd be all over that stuff. And today I find myself looking online at new computers as if I'm going to buy one.
Yes.
When I'm not going to, but it's just
Yeah.
the thought, the shopping and the anticipation, and there's so much pleasure even before you even get it.
Yes.
And you know that when you get it, it just doesn't last.
Yeah. 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 No, that's a great observation. I can totally resonate with that. Yeah. I needed to buy a new laptop like half a year ago. It had to, because the other one was really old and finished, and luckily I had, and because I had that same experience, because I think our society plays into that. So what happened to me, I needed a new laptop. I researched a bit, like, what is available, how much does it all cost, what is good, read some reviews. So I prepared myself a bit. Then I went to the shop, and exactly what you described was happening, because I said, well, I think I want to have that and that, need a new laptop. I think I want to have that and that model and that price. And then the lady in the shop said, oh, but that's not good. The one you want, it's going to be out of date in a year and it's not as fast. You need another one that is £500 more, or another one that is £1,000 more. So it was actually, I had to really stick to my original, like, I want a reasonable, simple laptop, and it needs to do that job. But the lady in the shop really was insisting and said, that's not good. Don't do that. You need the more expensive one. So in the end, I just bought the one I wanted, but I had to really focus on that and not be tempted by all the talk about that the other one is better and faster, and mine would be out of date within a year. And I go like, when did you build this one? Well, last year. Well, I think it'll last a few more years. So give me the one I want. So, but like our whole society works with that energy. So yes, interesting to notice. Yeah. And interesting to notice then how do we deal with that and deal with that situation? Yeah, so I actually wanted to do a little bit of inner work. This is like a short guided meditation. It's a guided reflection where I would sort of ask, guide you through a few sentences. This one is about the mind is the source of happiness and pain. So I'll ask a few questions. This is basically about a disturbing situation in your life. So I'll just guide you through. It takes about, I think, 10-15 minutes or so. We'll see. So if you want to just take a moment to make yourself comfortable, maybe feel how you sit here, your sit bones on the seat, and notice your breathing. Letting go of the words. I invite you to remember a disturbing situation in your life. Ideally, a recent situation where something that came up that affected your peace of mind, something unexpected, maybe a conflict with another person. There may be more situations, but for now, just choose one of them, something that is maybe still up at the moment, or something that happened recently. And I invite you to remember, when you rethink of that situation and play it back, how it played out. What were you thinking and feeling? So not what the other person was saying or doing, but what were you thinking and feeling? And then check, how did the way you described this situation to yourself influence it? Influence how you experienced it? How did the way you described the situation to yourself influence how you experienced it? So check how your attitude affected what you said and did in the situation. How did your words and actions affect the situation? Or maybe you talked about the situation with others. What energy did you spread around? If this was in relation to one other person, how did this other person respond to what you said and did? Was your view of the situation realistic? Were you seeing all the sides of the situation? Or were you seeing things through the eye of just me, I and mine? Just check without blaming. So now think of how you could have viewed the situation differently if you had had a broad mind, and if you had been free of self-centeredness. Imagine with a broad and maybe even a compassionate mind. How would that have changed your experience of the situation? One way to do that is to imagine you're in a movie and you're replaying this situation. How can you replay this situation in a different way? With a more realistic view. Maybe more kindness or compassion. Imagine how that would make you feel. And allow that feeling, that different state of being to fill you now, to fill your heart, fill your mind, fill your body, fill your whole being. And then gently bring your awareness back to the here and now, to your body. Move your body. Take a deeper breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I'd love to hear a little bit like what's happened. Were you able to look at, find the situation, look at it, explore it in a different way? Let's just hear a little bit what went on there. You want to share?
Yeah, I thought of a recent difficult situation that I went through, and it was I think since it was a very heavy situation and very very emotional, and I got a little teared eye remembering. It's I think it was kind of difficult for me to step out and see in a different angle, because I think I'm still very the situation is still going on, and I feel very difficult to just to see in a different angle. And um, even when it happened, I didn't know exactly what to do. I was very lost, and right now I feel, what should I have done differently, and how should I have said differently, and how should I act? I still don't know. So so it was very it was very difficult for me to step out and see things in a different angle.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing about that. Yeah. Did it give you a little bit different perspective, or?
I don't know if a different perspective, but it made me inquire more of how should I have what should I have done, and how should I have seen things differently, or if I should have seen differently, and if I felt right, if I should have felt differently. So I don't know if I did see things in a different angle, but it made me inquire more about it. Sorry, there's a little guy participating there.
Cute, so cute.
He wants to give his opinion.
How old is she?
He is 1 year and 2 months.
Okay, so nice. Great, another participant. Nice.
Yeah, another participant. So
yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. But thank you for describing a little bit about how, your experience. Thank you. Yeah, because
Had a go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go, you
Oh,
Louis.
I was going to say, about 2 weeks ago, an old roommate. I have a 2-bedroom condo, and I tend to have people who need a place to stay, for a couple of months or whatever. And this roommate has PTSD and bipolar and has paranoia attacks. And I finally thought everything was straightened out. He moved to South Carolina. He had an apartment that his stepfather had furnished him with. And then he shows up on my doorstep about 2 weeks ago in the middle of a full-blown paranoia attack. And he's telling me about how this person at his new apartment complex is going to kill him and his whole family, and how he can't go back, and he wants to know if he can stay here. And I just wasn't ready to handle that much going on, because I tried to reason with him in the past when he had paranoia attacks. I could explain things. I could say, well, you know how unlikely this is, quote statistics, and why would this person single you out? And after a day or two, it would all pass. This time it just got worse and worse. And I started losing my temper and telling him. And I finally, I got so confused inside about what to do. I don't have the knowledge to how to handle it properly. I didn't feel it was appropriate to call someone to take him to a facility because he had 2 dogs with him, and there's always the possibility when you call someone about things like that the police may overreact, and some harm may come to him if he resists and stuff like that. So I finally got him to go back to where his mother lives in Virginia. And he left after about 4 days. He was still in the midst of all this, but at least he had an objective, something to do, and he had a place to go. And my problem is the fact that I lost my temper with him, and it started off with compassion, but then it just completely overwhelmed me. And instead of dealing with that whole thing after it happened, I've just buried it.
Right.
Because it was the easiest thing to do.
Yes.
And so now trying to think about it, you start to think of, well, how much of this was because I didn't want the discomfort of dealing with it, and how much of it was due to fear, and how the compassion just got lost and all of that. So anyway.
Thank you for describing that. Yes, that sounds like a very complicated situation. And it shows also that it's not always easy to help others, even like you had initial good intentions and compassion, and then actually knowing how to help someone in that sort of, it sounds to me like a very difficult situation with paranoia. So yes. Yeah, but thank you for, the honesty to actually bring it back and look at it, because that gives then an opportunity to explore it or to find out, what.
I've done that with old trauma from when I was a child. And by doing that and using Buddhist techniques, I've dealt with it and I've handled it, but that's old trauma. It doesn't have the emotional impact that it once had. And I find it difficult to work with something that just happened because everything is so fresh.
Yes. Yeah. But great opportunity to actually, be with, like this recent example, and to explore that, or to maybe reflect on it, or use different, you are studying Buddhism, so I'm sure you have different techniques. So now that it's not buried anymore, then you can actually engage with it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's very real life examples. Yeah, because I notice sometimes it helps to just to get a different perspective on on situations, and it can give just a little bit more breathing space, or a little bit more peace, or a little bit more spaciousness. And when there is a little bit more peace or relaxation or spaciousness, then there can be more access to our own resources, our own common sense, or our own resilience, or our own ideas. So yeah, so that's something that can happen. Yeah, I was in this whole situation that I described earlier, that I'd lost my job and the redundancy. Actually, at some point, I also reflected that there have been a situation in the past where I was a trustee of an organization, and we needed to pay back £1.3 million to the original people who lended us money. So we looked at different ways to do it, but in the end said, well, we had a big building where we had a Buddhist center. In the end, we said, well, we need to sell the building. Can't think of another way to get more than $1 million. Tell us. But so we actually had to close the center, and through that other people also lost their job and their home and things like that. So it gave me another perspective on my unfair situation, which I thought was unfair, but in a way thinking I had to do that too at some point, without wanting people lose their job, etc. But it happened. So yeah, so all these things happen, and sometimes by reflecting on them gives us the opportunity to explore it more, and to look at different situations and different ways to deal with it. Sometimes even it sounds simple, but accepting the situation and actually give it attention instead of pushing it away. Because I think, I have that too, and I think many of us have the tendency to, when there's a difficult situation, to push it away, while sometimes to actually give something attention and slow it down and reflect on it. That can give us more different ways to deal with it. So that is not, in my experience, it's not like something we do once and then that's it. It's like, okay, you study some Buddhism, you know the answer, and that's it. Our challenges are coming up again and again. So in a way, our ability to deal with them also needs to be fresh. Like you said, you may have things from the past, from traumatic experiences, or there is something that comes now. Someone, rings your bell at the door and you have to deal with it now. So I think bit by bit, when we do the practice, when we do our meditations, or when we do our dealing with difficult situations, and we can actually develop resources bit by bit, and develop ways to deal with these difficult situations, by getting a more realistic view. Today we looked a bit on what is our view, what is actually our view of reality. Sometimes by building up more compassion and more patience, or more kindness, more wisdom, to build up our positive qualities, and slowly reducing our our unhelpful habits of pushing things away or getting angry or retaliating or, whatever habits we have. So that's the practice. So I just want to appreciate you for engaging in that and finding ways through. So yeah, so I'm aware we're coming towards the last few minutes of our session. Any final comments you want to make here?
This one, I want to thank you for the teachings. It's very helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Yeah. So so I'll be back here next week, the same time. Also, there are a lot of other, practices, and they all help. So in this Buddhist lineage, there are a lot of different practices. Earlier, I was chatting with Louis. There are practices where you study a lot. There is discovering Buddhism, where you do a lot of study, and then integrate that in your life. There are meditations where you do like breathing meditation or different types of meditations to, in a way, resource ourselves for and being able to actually sit and focus and sit and just be with ourselves, in a way, get to know ourselves. So there are a lot of different practices. I'm actually doing one this weekend here in Scotland, but on Zoom I'm doing a green Tara practice. So again, that is something more with visualization and mantra. So I'm happy to put that in the chat, just in case you're interested. Is that okay, Louis? Or can I do that?
Yes, you can.
Put
Sorry.
It's over here. So that is a practice with visualization, it's green Tara. It's more from the tantric practice where you use visualization. So instead of focusing on the problem, you focus on building up positive energy and actually being in a state of complete compassion and love and wisdom. So that's yet another technique. So like there are a lot of different
I find practices like that, the Tara practice and some other things, ways to renew some of the energy that you lose just by living day to day, to get more enthusiasm back into your life, some kind of inner energy and strength. Absolutely. I think they're good for that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So I just put it out if you want to explore that. And I'm sure they are in the Buddhist Center in Santa Fe. They happen as well. So thank you. I want to just do a closing dedication, but thank you for being here. And thank you, Louis, for being the Zoom driver and making technical things possible. So let's just take a moment and to reflect on how we sit here now. And looking at our session, let's have a determination to be more aware of how we make an interpretation of the events of our lives. And to cultivate beneficial and realistic ways of looking at them and responding to them. And let's dedicate the positive energy. May this bring more peace and happiness in our own lives. Let's see this bringing more peace and happiness in the lives of those people and situations we discussed in our session. May it bring more peace and happiness to our immediate surroundings, our child, our family, our friends. And eventually to all beings. May it have a ripple effect into our world. Thank you.